Welcome to the Exotic Animal Company podcast. Here with my co-host Kay and
Hello.
special guest Ninja of Pizza.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the podcast. So
Thank you for having me.
we're gonna start us off with Kay's fiance's wonderful animal facts.
Yeah, super random. So, animal fact of this podcast, interestingly enough, elephant seals have what's called smoker's blood because they have the same amount of carbon monoxide in their blood as a person who smokes 40 or more cigarettes each day. Why? That's crazy. How do they find this stuff out? How are they alive?
More importantly, does that mean that humans can survive with that much, carbon monoxide in their blood?
I guess so. I don't know.
That means
Maybe
some
not well.
that means some weird shit for like genetics. And if we start changing, if we start changing our genetics like people want, it's some pretty weird stuff.
Very, very weird stuff. I agree.
I'm gonna jump in with some icebreakers, I think, because I don't know Ninja very well. So these icebreakers are really deep questions. Is that okay?
That is perfectly fine.
Okay, my first question: what is your favorite color?
That would be a sapphire blue. Somewhere
Oh.
between royal blue, but not as dark.
Okay.
Oh, that is a pretty color. Oh my gosh.
So I'm gonna be straight with you.
Right.
I'm shade deficient, so all I heard was blue because that's all I can see out of that.
Yes. Think of ocean blue, depth of ocean blue. Since you're turtle.
Okay, perfect. One more ice-breaking, deep question. Your favorite genre of music and why?
Oof. Okay. So, I've played instruments almost my whole life, so I love all kinds of music. However, one that I've been leaning to as of recently, and I'm all about positive vibes and happiness and sunshine, but it's actually been metal music. I've been listening to a lot of Orbit Culture and Lorna Shore. So,
Ooh.
the reason being is because it's actually quite soothing whenever you're blaring that while playing Call of Duty and not listening to any in-game sound. It's actually very relaxing. Highly recommend.
I feel that. Yes. No,
And
she's
you're not
not even
sponsored, are
wrong.
you? You're not sponsored by
Non-spawn.
All right. Well, now that those icebreakers are out of the way, Kay, I'm gonna let you go ahead and fire off the first few questions.
Okay. Well, my first question is super easy, super simple. But Ninja, what does mental health mean to you? So, for example, do you think mental health automatically equals happiness, or is it just the absence of any mental illness or anything like that?
I think mental health is more of the absence of it all because if we lived in total happiness, we will probably never be truly happy. If we didn't experience some form of sadness or some form of anger, we would not truly understand what happiness is. Now, if we don't feel something for a moment, when we have that calm of peace, it's one of those like, whoa, wait a minute, what is this? And then you recognize when you feel something again. And I think mental health is coming to a state where you're able to feel nothing but everything at the same time, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh, I like that answer, actually. I agree with that. I like that. Yeah, okay. So then, with that, what's your opinion on the someone has it worse than you way of thinking?
I truly believe that from my perspective. However, I don't recommend that for somebody who is in a very dark state of mind because then you'll start to feel more pitiful for others and then feel selfish for feeling the way that you do when you are allowed to feel anything and everything that you're feeling in that moment. Because ignoring that feeling could cause more issues later down the road and could be
Right.
very harmful or lead to the end of your life, to say in the least. But
Mhm.
I do believe that somebody who is in a decent mental state, an understanding of what you're feeling, to think somebody does have it worse than me. I guess like I should really look back and take into perspective that maybe what I'm going through in the moment isn't as bad as my mind is making it to be, and try to focus on repairing that. But again, if you're in a darker state, I don't recommend believing that somebody has it worse than you.
Right. Yeah, I feel like stuff like that could be not so helpful to some because it
Yeah,
could probably
exactly.
make it really bad for that person. No, I like that. Do you think that it's always good to give advice to someone who's coming to you and having issues? Do you think it's always a good thing to give them advice or what you think? Or do you think that it's just best to listen to what they have to say?
I'm a firm believer in asking the person first, like, okay, are you coming to me for advice or do you just need an ear? Because sometimes, from personal experience, I just want somebody to listen. Especially when I'm ranting, like, I know how to handle the situation, but right now it is too much, and I need to tell somebody that it's too much. I know how to get to the end of this, but right now I'm struggling. And when somebody gives me advice when I didn't ask for it, I become frustrated. I don't listen, and even if it's the exact same thing I thought about before, I
Mm.
won't listen to myself because somebody told me to do it. You know.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's always important that when you're dealing with somebody who's going through something, first ask them, now are you wanting my advice or do you want me to just listen? Because you never know what the answer is going to be.
that makes sense to me. Yeah, I think that would be a good way to take it or to go into it. All right, your turn.
Well, so in your opinion, does party culture contribute more or less to a rise in the mental health problems that are going on in the world?
I believe that it is contributing more because it gives a sense of false happiness for momentary gain. And then later on, when you're done with having quote unquote fun and the time of your life, you come back home to your normal state and you believe, like, huh, I wish I was still there. But while you're there, you're making decisions like using substances or being surrounded by people who aren't really there for you. So it's like a kind of a false social identity, unless you know you're a social butterfly and it's like it's where you resonate more within yourself. But other than that, if you're not sure if that's where you're supposed to be, I think it can cause serious negative effects because usually in the party culture, at least what I've noticed living in, the Texas Metroplex area, like Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, the nightlife was the most toxic because everybody was using substances, whether it was alcohol or using drugs. And I believe that those contributed to a lot of downfalls to many people that I knew in that life, that when they would use, they became a totally different person. Nobody could recognize them anymore. And I believe that even within music that glorifies that life leads a false joy, a false sense of like, oh, well, if I have what they have, I'll eventually be happy. And especially with young kids nowadays listening to music that I would get slapped on the head for, um, I feel like that is giving them an identity that they don't need to have. Like prior to them finding who they are, it is allowing them to believe that, oh, if I want to be happy and I want to have the best life, I need to aim for that. And I completely disagree with that.
Interesting. So, you brought up music in that as well. What about your opinion on quote unquote sad boy music? I don't know how else to describe it, but like a good example, like 3 Days Grace did a song called Pain. On the back end of that, is it helpful to those relating to that specific kind of music, or is it hindering their progress and finding a better state of mind?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I know this one all too well because I had a playlist on a streaming service that was titled Sad Girl Hours," um, because I would listen to these sad songs because I felt I related to them. And one of my favorite songs was "Hurt" by Johnny Cash because it was relatable. I was like,
It's a
"Oh,
good
I
fucking
relate to
song
this,"
too.
and I cried and I felt it. And but the problem was is that once I removed that music from my life, again, great song, great music, like the artists are make that music for the um the feeling of I know what you're going through. However, but like if we listen to that music nonstop, that is going to be our mentality. Once I stopped listening to sad girl hours all the time, I started to discover, wait, I'm not as sad as I thought I was. I'm not crying over a song because what I'm feeling actually isn't as bad as that song is making me feel. Um, so I believe that there's a time and a place to be like, you know what, this is relatable, but I'm going to listen to something that speaks happiness and something that brings forth joy. Like listening to it was that happy song that was very popular not too long
That
ago.
Because I'm Happy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know what you're
because I'm
talking about.
happy, right?
Yeah,
That song got so annoying because it was overplayed, but, like, if
it
you
was
go from
Pharrell
a sad song
Williams.
to that song, you're actually like, "Oh, you know what? I actually, it's a bop. I'm feeling it." So I believe it's healthy to have some songs, but to focus on the sadness, really does have a negative effect.
So, following up on that, after you've gotten yourself in a more brighter place, I guess you could say, because there are some people that believe you're never truly fully out of the woods, and you know, I'll touch on that later. But after you've gotten yourself to a brighter place and a state of happiness, do you think that it is beneficial to revisit those feelings through music, or do you think it's best to avoid that kind of music?
I believe that it is okay. Like, if you are in more of a stable mindset to revisit that because you're not going to have the depth of feeling that you had before. When you're in a weaker mindset, when you're completely broken, it is easy to be affected by anything and everything, especially music, because that's how, us as humans, that's how we feel. That's how we resonate with one another. Like, that's how we all communicate in a way. Um, but whenever you're more in a stable set of mind, I believe that it is okay to listen to the song. You're like, you know what? This reminds me of that one time, and wow, I can't believe I made it.
Hmm.
Perfect. Alrighty, Kay. Well, let you hit a few more
I
questions.
also I want to ask, do you feel like we're throwing these questions at you too fast?
Oh no, I'm like I said, this is a subject that I know all too well,
Okay,
and I've studied way too hard. You're perfectly fine.
cool. I just didn't want you to be like, "Oh my god, slow down." Um, okay. What do you think works best for you? And you don't have to answer if you want, but what do you think works best for you when trying to cope with mental illness or dealing with, I mean, if you were coping with mental illness? If not, what do you think would be the best for someone to do when trying to cope with something like that, whether it be depression, anxiety, anything like that?
Oh yeah, so something that I still do. So I try to be all positive vibes and everything, but I always let my chat know like, hey, I'm having a bad day because it is supposed to be promoted, that hey, like I feel just because I'm on a platform and I'm a quote unquote streamer doesn't mean I don't have feelings. But when I have those bad days, something I like to do is sketch. My drawings do tend to be a little bit more emotional, a little bit more dark, and have more feelings. Like I showed one on stream the other day, and it was a face that was tearing into two, one being angry, one being sadness. And once I was done drawing, I realized I'm not sad anymore because everything I felt was put onto this piece of paper and I no longer feel it. And then a week from now, a month from now, if I go back and look at it, I'm thinking, wow, I can't believe that I knew exactly what I was feeling at that time and I no longer feel that now. So it's like a great reference to go back to. But something I
Mhm.
like to do is draw. So if you have a hobby that you enjoy and you may not want to do that hobby at that time because you're feeling sad, I highly recommend trying to fight that feeling and do it anyway. So if you like to write music or write lyrics, write a poem, anything creative, if you like to paint, you can freaking draw stick figures in a little comic section, like trying to make a little story with them, and it'll bring you joy.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back because you said, I know that you do like to, I guess, keep the positive vibes on stream while also being transparent about if you are having a bad day, you let people know. But what is your opinion on streamers or just online, I guess, influencers, if you want to call them that? Their opinion on those who practice the toxic positivity.
And this, again, this is my personal opinion, so I hope not to offend anybody with this, but I believe that you are doing no good by pretending you're okay if you're not okay. Now, if that streamer is actually that positive, I want what you have,
Right.
whatever. But like legit, those are the streamers that you want to reach out and ask, hey, but are you really okay? And they may not answer you, and who knows, they actually might. So, um, it's really important not to give a false sense of direction because if you show someone to go right instead of going left and it's a dangerous path, but it's called a shortcut, you're just leading them into a depth that they will not be able to be reached from.
Right.
I feel like people tend to relate off of people. Like we get along because like the same way I met you, Kaydexx. It's like, hey, we deal with toxic lobbies. Let's be friends, right?
Yes.
So people tend to relate more with each other when they know that they can feel what that person's feeling. So like I don't think false sense of happiness is a good way to go about it. That toxic happiness is in no way a positive, is no way going to provide a positive outcome.
Right, and I definitely agree with that as well. Okay, let's see one more from me because I think this relates too. How can you be there for someone while dealing with your own mental health? And do you think this could be detrimental to your own?
Right. So like I firmly believe in there's a time and a place for everything. There's times where I myself will not respond to messages days at a time, and I'll come back and say, "Hey guys, I really am sorry. You know that I love you and I care about you, but I was in a state myself that I could not help you." And I believe that everyone should really focus on themselves. And this is mental health is supposed to be selfish. You're supposed to put yourself first finally, because people who deal with mental health are always putting other people ahead of them, and it's not fair, you know? So, whenever you're going through something, I truly believe that you need to take a step back and be like, "Okay." So, if someone, let's say I was dealing with depression and I'm trying to help somebody with depression, if you both feel like you're there for each other, it's no longer I'm helping you. It's we're helping each other and we are going to figure this out. Not like I'm going to tell you, you need to be happy, you need to do this when I'm preaching to the choir, you know?
Mhm.
So if I'm struggling myself, I need to be like, you know what? I relate to you because I am going through the same thing. And now that we identify the issue together, what can we do to build this? Like, what can we do to help each other? But like, I deal with anxiety. Like, I don't know if you can hear it right now, but I'm actually shaking like a chihuahua because, yes, I am anxious and I will say that. But if someone else is dealing with anxiety, I will let them know, well, this is what calms me down. Maybe it can help you. But I will never tell somebody you don't need to be anxious because there is a reason why you're feeling anxious, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. So Mom has a question in chat. She says, but how do you make yourself do your joy bringing hobby? She says, I've been trying, but I can't seem to bring myself to do it.
Yeah, that is a good one. So sometimes it's taking steps towards it. Like what I tend to tell people is that when you're having a really bad mental health day, sometimes getting out of bed is the achievement in itself. Now, if you can't do your hobby, do something that makes you feel like you have a peace of mind. Like something that I tend to do if I can't get to my hobby, which is gaming. I love gaming, but there's days where I feel burnt out because it's always focused on other people. Sometimes for me, it is cleaning my own house. So if it's like, well, you know what, I'm gonna put these cups in the sink. I may not be able to wash them, but putting them there and clearing the counter brings me a sense of peace because it's no longer dirty looking, you know? So like making your surroundings cleaner to something that you can actually feel comfortable in is a step in that direction. So if you have like a hobby room or something, maybe tidying up at first, like putting pens with pens, pencils with pencils, and giving you that room, like that feeling that of calm will actually push you in the direction like, you know what, I might actually feel like doing this now because it's no longer a cluttered space.
You have anything else, Kay, or do you want me to jump in?
Um, I think I'll take a break from throwing questions at her. I only have 3 left.
Okay. To take a little bit of a break, maybe to help with everybody's anxiety, I'm going to ask you another personal question if that's okay.
It's perfectly
Um,
fine, yeah.
what made you want to stream?
Well, I remember over a year ago, I've always played video games, growing up playing video games, but back when I was younger and I was a kid, many girls didn't game or it was like frowned upon because I don't remember ever growing up with another little girlfriend that played video games. And growing up with brothers, that's all that I had. And so it made me a competitive player, but a decent one. And I knew like, okay, whenever I was playing Call of Duty, whenever I was playing other games that involved online lobbies, I was doing pretty good. And I'm like, you know what? What if I can make this a thing? What if I could, create content? Because I can be funny sometimes, like what if that's what some people need? And I remember turning on like the live on my PlayStation, playing for the first time and thinking like, I don't think I can do this. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. And it really opened up my eyes as to how difficult that being a streamer can be. And I at first I debated. I was like, is this even for me? Is this something that I want to do? But when I started talking to people while playing something that I loved, it made me feel like I'm actually hanging out with these people. It's no longer like me talking to people on the internet. It's like we're all hanging out and watching me be a buffoon. on television, you know? And it was that sense of joy that it brought me that actually made me continue because I was like, you know what? I like hanging out with people and making mistakes for everyone to see. It makes me feel more human. And that is why I continued streaming. And I'm not going to lie, for a brief moment, I wanted to quit. And I have two friends that actually motivated me to continue streaming. And if it wasn't for them to give me that clarity of why I began in the first place, I wouldn't be here today. So, yeah.
Well, I certainly am glad that you're here today. Just this isn't a question, just a statement. It actually baffled me how positive and like friendly your chat was, because I've stopped in on a few of your streams, and like it's insane. Like I have never seen anybody's chat that friendly. There is always, whenever I go into somebody's stream, some person talking shit or being kind of a d-bag, but like it's amazing. It baffles me. It really does.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of the people in my community are truly amazing, and every single one of them has gone through something. Um, a lot of them that you see often in chat, and a lot of them that are in your chat right now are actually guardians in my community who are there for like other people to reach out to, like they've gone through so much and they've overcome, so they have an understanding of what it's like to be around toxicity, to grow up in toxicity, and with them having that understanding, they know what it is needed to show love. And because of them, I actually love streaming because I can't wait to talk with them because of their positivity. So if it weren't for them, I probably wouldn't be streaming either.
That's awesome. What another more personal question. When did you start advocating publicly for mental health, and what was your reason, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, I first started back when I was about 17 years old, and it was more on social platforms like Facebook and on Instagram. And it was on my personal pages, though. It wasn't on like streaming, because again, I wasn't a streamer back then. But the reason why is because I had experienced a lot growing up as a kid. Like, I grew up in a good home. Like, this wasn't really involving my parents. Of course, parents can contribute to some mental disorders or situations that you go through without even knowing it, But growing up, going through so much, I realized I'm not the only one. I'm not the only person going through this. There's so many that are going through this and not talking about it. And because of that, I started looking into it more. And whenever I was in college, I had access to like scholarly articles and like different different reports given by doctors through actual tests, and I started to realize how serious mental illness was, and I didn't know that what I was going through was actually considered an illness, something that wasn't right. I thought it was normal, and knowing that it was a problem made me work harder on myself. And once I came to that light, I realized I can actually help other people. And I remember, actually, when I was about 14 years old, um, I was on a site that no longer exists because the founder of the site actually passed away of cancer, and it was called Faith Freaks, and it was a community service of people from every background, whether you were Buddhist to atheist to Christian to Muslim, anybody could be on there, and it was a popular place to discuss religion and thoughts and everything. And a lot of the people, whether they were religious or not, were going through a lot at home, and were really just trying to find somebody to talk to. And at the age of 14, I was actually talking to people who were 28 years old about what they were going through, and they couldn't believe my age at the time. Um, and when I realized that growing up in that community, and knowing a lot more than what a 14-year-old should, um, it gave me a light that, okay, something needs to be done. And by the time that I was, again, 17 years old, I realized that there is something that can be done. And that's when I started advocating more about mental health, but specifically men's mental health as well.
What made you specify men's mental health?
The reason why it was more men's mental health is because first off, the things that I grew up seeing where my generation was raised, that well, a real man doesn't cry, a real man doesn't show pain. It's a sign of weakness, and men who are viewed weak are just beta. And it's like, that's not true. I believe that it takes a strong man to hold back his feelings, but it takes an even stronger man to be vocal about them, because they could be judged by their friends, they could be judged by family, by society, and it's not fair. Many don't talk about what they're going through, or reach out about anything, because they're taught in the culture, in a society, that no one's going to listen to you. You know, especially with a lot of things going on today with certain groups that I won't mention, that are very popular, that take the attention away from men without realizing they're going through a silent battle with no help. And I actually do have quite a few statistics on this, if people like don't believe in it and all of that, um, about the difference in percentages between men and women, and the suicidal rate that comes with mental health in men and women as well.
That's awesome. Because that's something that I've noticed a lot too, is that just growing up, my dad wasn't one that was a strong silent type. If anybody knows him, he's kind of the opposite, but he didn't want me to be raised like that, and I was very fortunate that he did not.
That's awesome.
Um, so I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then I'm gonna toss the ball back over to Kaydexx. But this one is more related to like acting and cinema and like live theater. Why is it, do you think, that method acting affects actors so drastically? A good example is Heath Ledger when he did the Joker for The Dark Knight. If you go through, because there was pictures of his personal journal while he was going through the mindset of being the Joker. It's pretty dark and it's really scary, especially to know that I think he OD'd pretty soon after. Just in your opinion, why is it that it affects them so drastically, or why do you think that they let it affect them so drastically?
It comes back to the psychological effects of it, where, like, again, like how we talked about the music, when you listen to that, the sad music all the time, that becomes your reality. You become sad without having a reason to be sad. And I feel like the whole becoming that character can have harmful effects if you're not careful. So playing a psychopath, playing somebody who's depressed or hurting, can develop those thoughts in your head, because being an actor is becoming that character. Like, you have to become one, which is why many directors actually take this into consideration and say, well, if they believe you are feeling the character way too much, they won't cast you the role. Like, if you are too good of an actor, they say, no, you can't do this. And it's because of people like Heath Ledger, that this is now coming into play. Um, but I believe it is harmful because our mind adapts to our surroundings, and it's constantly evolving. And I believe that with the negativity, the toxicity, the sadness, the sorrow, it starts to embrace that more, and it starts to cause that activity in your brain, like the neurotransmitters to react to that situation and try to protect you from it. But even when, like, the scene is done and you're going home, you're gonna have that feeling still of, oh, well, I did really good that role. I did really good. I should keep practicing that part, without realizing you're feeding yourself that negativity when you're not supposed to, when you don't need to, you know?
Oh yeah. And what made me think of that is not only just Heath Ledger, but like I've seen video of Jim Carrey whenever he goes in for a role. He's very much so a method actor, and he dives really deep into it. And some of these actors, they don't just shut it off when they leave set. They go home and they do it. And I don't know which specific actor it was, but there was one that like he had to play somebody that was homeless and nomadic, and so he sold his house, his car, and a ton of his clothing. And for
Oh,
me, I heard about that and I was just like, that's taking it too far. There's no amount of money in the world that would make me want to do that. That's that's literally giving up everything for what, $2 million?
that
That's
is pretty crazy. I mean, and it also comes to the method acting of false, like how Kadex asked earlier about the false happiness, the toxic happiness. Like, Robin Williams, who was a great man who brought us laughs throughout the years. Um, he was always the happy comedic character, and no one knew his silent battle. No one really knew the depth of it. And to hear the way he went out, he was such a good man that he didn't need to go through that, but no one knew his pain and his struggle. And having to pretend to be the happy person all the time can also have the same negative effects.
Alrighty. Hey, Kay, I'm tossing the ball back into your court whenever you are. Good.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So this is a big one I've been seeing. It's really more of like a debate, I guess, between people I've seen on TikTok and Twitter. But it relates to trigger warnings. I'm just curious to know, do you think influencers, do you think it's their responsibility to always have trigger warnings, or do you think it's the responsibility of the person who could possibly be affected?
I personally believe that it's the content creator because that is legit your title. You are creating content for the people that are watching now. If you know that the ages of your watchers or your viewers are between the ages of like 14 and 20, and you know that the common situations going on in society involve like really sensitive topics, if you're going to be including that in your content and you're truly a content creator, meaning you're doing this for your people, you should have that warning. That way they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to watch this, but I will continue to follow your content because you showed me that respect, that you care about me as a viewer, to protect me from this. And because of that, I will continue to support you. But if I were to scroll onto a video and all it says was one of my trigger words, then I would be like, you know what? The fact that you would share this without preventing, like showing that, hey, this is going to be in here, makes me believe that you're not as good of a person that you say you are. This could just be my personal opinion, but I'm not going to watch your content from this point forward. That is like my own opinion of it or my own output of like how I would view it. I don't know if other people would feel the same way, but this is just from my personal perspective.
So
I actually
I
never.
have a
Okay.
response question if that's okay. I'm sorry, Kay.
No, go ahead.
So based on that, do you think that it is enough that places like YouTube or Twitch put an 18 plus warning, which is super easy to bypass by clicking yes or no, or do you think that it further is still on the content creator to push that factor forward that this is not suitable for most viewers?
I think it's more of the platform at that point. Like you said, it's so easy to bypass that. And I think that at that point it is the viewer's responsibility. So if there was an 18 or older warning and you have to click on it, if you are younger than that age, you're allowing yourself to be susceptible to whatever you're about to see. So at that point, that is on you, and that is actually on the platform. Because if the platform, let's say like YouTube, was really caring about like the people watching it, the viewers watching the content, they would make it a little bit more difficult. Like, okay, well, we have to verify your age. We have to actually see that, okay, this is your age to allow you to watch this. And again, that could take a lot of work because of all the people that are on the platform.
Mm.
I also think that it's the responsibility of the guardians in those people's lives to be like, hey, I have the setting on here to show me when you're on this, and it is very, very important for your mental health to be very careful. Um, but yeah, at that point, in my opinion, it does come onto the person rather than the content creator because at least they put that stamp on there, and at that point, it is your own personal decision. Yeah, because I do go live and I have the mature content warning, even if it's just a just chatting stream, because sometimes people will come in and talk about some seriously dark topics of things that they've gone through. And I don't
Right.
want some of the younger people seeing that. However, I'll have people come into my chat who are like 12, 14 years old, and I don't want to kick them away because they're reaching out for a reason. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want you to see certain things because I don't want you to think about things that you may not have gone through, you know?
Right.
Well, not only that, but like even somebody like me, I don't do mental health streams. This is my first one. This is the first time we've done it on the podcast, but like I play a lot of Call of Duty, and if you don't know, that's a very violent, gory, bloody game. And it really bothers me whenever I'm playing Call of Duty and I hear, a 9-year-old on the other end of a microphone, not only just on a very bloody, gory game, but interacting with people who are in their 30s and 40s and may not have great intentions and talk a ton of bad stuff. For me, I'm a big advocator of you should have to send like an identification, a picture of identification to prove that you are the age that you need to be playing the game, watching certain streams, watching certain things on YouTube. Like,
Yeah, and see, at that point, I believe that it is actually the parents that are to blame,
Yeah.
because they aren't careful as to what their children get on, and I hate going into a lobby on like a game like Call of Duty with a 9-year-old or a 13-year-old because there are people on there who will say the most disgusting things to these kids that they may not be ready for. Like they talk like they
Mm.
should talk back, but at the same time, it's like those kids get off the game and that may still be in their heads. And that could also cause mental issues. Like something that I saw in actually a Harvard, how do you explain that? A Harvard study is that a lot of the mental issues started actually between the ages of 5 and 10, whereas, like, in boys, it was higher by 12%, and in girls, it was high by 6%, as young as 5 years old. Now, if you take that into consideration, and this is only what's recorded because this was a study in the UK,
Mm.
people that can go to a therapist and go see an actual specialist on this, um, somebody as young as that, these are, like, some of the ages of kids that are on this platform playing the same game that we are, and I know that sometimes it affects me, like, when I go into a lobby and some guy says some perverted thing for being a female gamer, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna shit talk back, it doesn't bother me, but when it just continues, it just ruins my mood, I become this toxic person, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, that's not me." So can you imagine somebody younger who doesn't fully understand what their boundaries is? What it's doing to them. So I believe that parents should actually be the parent if they're going to have kids and be like, "You know what? I don't think you should play this right now. And if you are, we are turning off the chat because you don't need to hear that."
Usually at that age, your brain is you're very impressionable. So of course, if you're on a video game playing with people you know who are older than you, you're going to think, "Oh, I want to be like them because they're cool, they're older. I want to talk like them and do what they're doing." And that stuff carries it leaves the online world and it carries out into the real world because I've seen it happen with my brother and that boy that's a whole other thing. Yeah, no, it's really shocking to me sometimes, and it hurts my soul. But I mean, there's really nothing I can do about it at that point, which sucks.
There's a game that I'm currently obsessed with called Rust, and it is a very, very toxic game. And I run into a bunch of kids that for a fact are underage,
Mhm.
and most of them probably still in middle school. And I actually play with a kid that is about 12 years old who is great at the game, meaning he's played for a very long time. But the things that come out of this kid's mouth, the quick comebacks to like other toxic comments just shows that he's been in this for a while, and he even said that, like, his father was at the house, like, his father's come into the room and not got onto him, and I'm just like, "Wait, he allows this?" Like, this parent is allowing this kind of toxic behavior from this child? He shouldn't be like this, you know? And it can be funny because you hear this high-pitched voice saying these things, but it's like, "Wait a minute, hold on, let's take a step back here. How old are you? And I will be your parent and tell you to get
Yeah,
off this goddamn game," you
well,
know?
and not
protect
only
this
that, but
child.
it's like it's funny until it's your kid saying that shit to you.
Yeah,
Exactly,
Like talking
exactly.
back to you, calling you the hard F word for telling
yeah,
him to go eat
pretty
dinner.
bad. Well, speaking of age and things like that, Ninja, do you think it's because I've seen some more debates about this as well, and I guess really it depends on the uh, the mental illness in this case. But do you think it's possible to outgrow or age out of mental illness?
Actually, I personally don't know, but there was a statistic, a study that showed that um, things like depression and anxiety were higher in adolescents, not children, but in teenagers, and it slowly went a little bit lower for ages between 20 and 40, but then when it got to the age of 50, it showed that it decreased by at least 20%. So I believe that you may not fully get out of, mental illness because again, there is negativity in the world. There are accidents that happen that you just can't understand. But I believe that as you grow older, you learn to cope with it more or learn to just ignore it, which again, ignoring doesn't help, but it's the way some people go about it.
Mhm.
But I do believe that eventually there is somewhat of a rainbow at the end, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, this I like this question actually. Um, so do you think that forcing into someone into therapy is okay? So for example, if they're not mentally aware enough to know that therapy would be good for them, is it okay to force them into therapy so that they get the help that they need?
Forcing anybody into anything is going to have a negative reaction. Like they're not going to want to do this. So suggesting like, hey, if I really think you need to speak to somebody like a professional, um, just at least one time, see how you feel about it. And if it's not for you, then we'll figure it out another way. But saying, hey, you need help, you need to get help isn't always the answer. However,
Mhm.
I know that in two instances that I was in, um, somebody who's more stubborn, somebody who is like in the military and they're like, no, I know I'm going through this, but I don't care what anyone has to tell me. Those are like these two people. I was like, you need help, and you know that you do. And if you're man enough, you would speak to somebody. They're like, all right, bet. And they did, and they're
Oh.
better now. So, like, sometimes it's okay to be like, you know what, you need to get help, but you
Mhm.
can't tell somebody that when they're broken and crying and like in a state where I'm hopeless, I'm helpless. That's when you need to share more love than direction, at least guide them to that road, that path, but never ever force anybody to do anything. It's like, for an example, you know that you have to do the dishes, right? And it's your own house, but your mother comes over, your father comes over, and they're like, "Hey, those are dirty dishes. You need to clean them." You're gonna say, "This is my house. I'm not gonna do them now."
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's that same it's that same mindset that like if you
Yeah.
force anybody to do anything, they're just gonna be like, "No, bruh, that's not for me."
Well,
Right. I
Adato
like
brings
that.
up a good point too. He said that some people are just generally scared of talking to professionals about it.
Oh yeah, exactly. And especially because it's that whole stranger aspect, which is why I brought Mental Health Monday to a stream because I noticed that in the middle of Call of Duty, I'd have somebody come in and talk about what happened at school, and I'd pause the game, I'd step out of a lobby just to be like, all right, well, let's talk about this, and sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody because the whole environment is about helping other people instead of it being a one-on-one situation. Not too many people like the whole like, oh, it's me and you in a room by ourselves talking about this. I'm not comfortable. And a lot doesn't get discussed. Because you get anxious, you forget half of the reason why you're there, and then when you leave, you're like,
Mhm.
dang it, this didn't help me.
Well, and it also could be, I mean, it could be easier when you're not showing your own face to the person you're talking to. Like, for example, with your streams, like they can see you, but you can't necessarily see them. So it's could also be
Right.
that because you can't see them, it's much easier for them to talk to you about it because you can't see them breaking down and they're not as embarrassed about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the whole anonymous side of it does help that as well.
So do you think social media can affect your mental health in a positive way or a negative way, as in like overall?
Oh yeah, for sure. During my what I call sad girl hours, I followed a lot of quote pages that were negative, that were like, "Oh, he broke my heart, and I'm not gonna recover," or "They can't hear me, they don't understand what I'm feeling, nobody loves me," and it was like, you know what? I'm gonna like this. I'm gonna sad react it because I can relate to it, but at the same time, it was like you're feeding yourself that negativity, or like when you follow these influencers and these models and these people who have it all together, you start thinking, well, I'm going to follow this to give me motivation to be that, to become that. But you're giving yourself this goal, this like at this moment, you're giving yourself something that is further down the road if you can get there. And when you don't get close to that goal, you start to feel defeated. I believe that if you want to set goals for your life, um, you would set those goals that you can reach in 5 months, in 10 months, something
Mhm.
that is that is reachable, that you know is right there and I can get there, and you will be more happier. Following pages where it's like, oh, I'm gonna follow this fitness page because this chick was once 500 pounds and is now 100 pounds, and I want to follow everything she did so I can lose the 20 pounds that I hate on me. And following that mentality is like, there's a positive side to it, but you're giving yourself this mentality, well, she achieved so much, I want to be her, instead of, I know I can achieve this much, I'm gonna be me. And I do believe that there is a negative side to it. So when I removed those pages, those quote pages, and I stopped seeing them on my feed, I stopped thinking about my ex. I stopped thinking about people who were bullying me. I stopped thinking about the toxic people in my chat. So I believe that putting things on your feed that fed your soul, that start to feed your mentality, produce a better mindset. So I do believe that social media can have an influence on your mental state.
So I'm gonna rebound a question back to you then. Would it be positive or negative for somebody to follow a page that is like clout, all clout? And what I mean by that is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out and buy 6 Supreme hoodies, and you know, sports car that has Supreme tagged on the side of it. Would that be beneficial or not? Because I've personally seen people that follow it and they're like, oh, I want this, but I know I'll never achieve it.
Right. So, like, it's coming from a viewpoint where you're like, oh, I follow this because, it gives me this feeling of, oh, like, I know I'll never get there, but I like looking at it anyway. I feel like, okay, well, that's fine. But if you're looking at it like, man, I wish I had that. I wish that was my lifestyle. And you're wanting what somebody else has, like, you're having this lust for a life that is not yours. I feel like that could be harmful on you. Because I used to follow, and I'm not going to say any names, but very popular people, and I felt like I really wish that that was my life. And having that mentality made me look at my own life being almost nothing, like looking at everything around me and like seeing everything that I have as worthless because, well, it's not what they have, when really blood, sweat, and tears were poured into everything that I currently own, whereas that was paid off by the amount of people who liked it, you know? Um, I believe that clout pages, and I hope not to offend anyone, I feel like they are um, a negative for somebody's mental state, because somebody who's posting, oh, I've got all these Supreme hoodies, it's like, I want attention to show, hey, I've got this money. Now, I know somebody who is a professional gamer that I got to know very well, who posts pictures like his car, his house, his watch. And the reason why he posts these things is because the quotes that he has with them, or the mindset behind it, it's like, I achieved this because I worked hard. Now, you have to be careful as the influencers that you follow, because if it's some guy who's just posting that he has all of these things without actually having a, hey, I made it mindset, and he's just like, hey, I have all of this and I can flaunt it, that's where you have to be careful. That is where the line should be drawn, in my opinion.
I agree 200%. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's okay to follow these big pages if they're motivating you, like, hey, like if you watch somebody from one year, from the beginning of a year to the end of the year, achieve so much, like you got to know who they were and their struggle and where they came from, then you'd be like, you know what, I'm proud of you, dude, for getting that watch. I'm proud of you for getting that car. Whereas you follow a page that's nothing but clout and everything that they're doing just because they want those likes. They know what the people like to see, and they're not really doing it to show like, hey, I did this today. That is not motivational at all.
So it's more important to focus on what they're saying, not just what they're doing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm gonna bring a question back around because I know you talked about drug abuse at one point.
Right.
Do you think that people seeking out drug abuse, or seeking out drugs to abuse, I should say, is linked to a different disorder of the mind than addiction? And like, does doing drugs but not forming an addiction to them put you at further risk of developing mental issues later down the line?
I believe yes, because I remember in a Harvard study that I read up that um, where women had major depression and anxiety, men actually had more substance abuse and personality disorders. Um, Substance abuse, I believe, and it has been researched that this can lead to worst scenarios, to worst mind states, because having a substance gives you that feeling of a normal that you crave. Like alcohol, it becomes a cushion, right? Because when you drink, you become funnier and people like you more and you feel relaxed and you feel happy. But then at the end of it, you come back to this reality of, well, I don't feel that happiness. I don't feel that funny. So I'm going to drink again so I can be that person that everybody loves. And it just becomes a habit, and that habit becomes an addiction. And then it's hard to come out of that state. Um, I noticed, and I'm going to share this with everybody. I noticed that I would do drunken COD streams because it was funny. I would cry laughing and everybody would laugh with me. But then I realized that if I stopped drinking for 3 days, I started to get severe headaches. And I little did I know that my body was becoming acclimated and like pretty much addicted to drinking without me even realizing it. And I feel like that is the same thing with substances, where men, again, can't really talk about their feelings. So when they do what they do or they take what they take, it brings this feeling of normal. It brings this state of comfort. And when they come out of that, they realize, oh, this is boring. I don't like this. And they take more because I felt normal. And it becomes a dependency. And that dependency leads to addiction. And then you're just going downhill from there. Um, and I feel that feeling of dependency comes from underlying signs of depression and anxiety. Like, you know what? I really freaking hate my job. And when I come home, I just want to relax. Well, what's the only way I know how to relax? Substance, you know? And I feel that that substance contributes to making the mental illness worse, the disorders worse, because if you're feeling depressed, you want to feel happy and you want to feel normal, so you take your substance, or you take whatever makes you feel um, comfortable. Same thing with anxiety, right? So I actually knew somebody who actually didn't want to admit being addicted to weed, to marijuana, where they would constantly smoke because it made them feel normal. And it was like that's not normal if you're depending on something to feel that way, you know, like you're not growing from it, you're not using in moderation to be like, hey, like I'm going to use a little bit here and there to boost, but not to be dependent on. And when it became a dependency, they realized this isn't living. Constantly, you know, lighting up, having to use that to feel normal, but being lethargic in that normal, not actually doing anything, you know, really affected their lives. Um, I know that with certain substances, it really messed with your uh, neurological side of things, with your mental state, being like, if you're bipolar or you have psychotic tendencies and you're using things like meth or cocaine, and it's creating this alter in your mind, like making you do things that you wouldn't normally do, but you're doing this under the influence. I feel like that is making that mental illness much worse, to where if they weren't going to use, it would bring this anxiety of, oh, what if, like, was that real or was that not real, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I 100% like I'm following you, and I've got this piggybacks off of what you just said. So you had said that, you know, the normalcy you feel when you're taking these substances, that's what causes the addiction, right? Do you think that
Right.
being like with mainstream hip hop specifically, like it preaches sex, money, drugs, and if you're not involved with all three at the same time, you ain't shit. It preaches
Right.
that that's the normal thing to do, and that's the relaxing thing to do, the good thing to do. Do you think that is what pushes people to believe that it's the normal and good and okay thing to use whenever you're feeling anxious or bugged out?
I do believe that it contributes to it, and many who will disagree with this are actually in that process already. It's because, well, yeah, they talk about that, but it's just a song, right? However, you go to the club and you buy that bottle of Ciroc mainly because this song reminds you of buying that bottle of Ciroc, and you're just throwing it back, right? And it makes you happy, but it's like, wait a minute, like you only know of Ciroc because of that song, like you
Right.
wouldn't normally know that bottle until you heard that song lyric. I know for a while, like almost every hip hop song mentioned Hennessy, and then Hennessy sales went through the roof because everybody was buying it because it was the it thing to do, and like it's not even that good of a drink, and so like people they we how do you say that, like whenever we hear something we want to try it out, right? Like trending things like on social media and stuff like that. But when it talks about this fast life because of the beat and because of the lyrics, you're like, you know what, this is what the cool people do, this is what it's in to do. And like you may not view it as, oh, this is cool people shit, but you start singing the lyrics because you're feeling it, and you see, like, you start to envision yourself in the club. You start envisioning yourself drinking, you start envisioning yourself being with like all these men or all these women, and that's not the right thing to do, right? Like you have that false mentality of that's what you want to do. And again, many young adolescent kids are listening to this music and being like, yeah, this is cool, and knowing all the lyrics to these songs are going to make me cool in school, and then I'm going to do exactly what they did so I can make it in the fast life and the high life so I can get my family out of the situation. And I think it's bringing like this whole spiraling staircase of just issues to follow.
Part of me thinks that it doesn't just start with wanting to fit in, though. Part of me, like, this is something that's scrambled around my head on this specific topic for a while. Part of me thinks that the majority of people listen to music because, oh, the beat is great, the rhythm is really good, this guy's flow on this song is really good, and then
Right,
that's what hooks them into it. And then from then
right,
on, they seek
exactly.
out music that's similar, and it just so happens, oh, music with a similar beat to I'm in love with the fucking Coco is also other
Right,
songs involving doing drugs. Wow, that must mean that if this makes my brain feel good, that the drugs will make my body feel good.
right. Yeah, I believe the same thing because our pretty much I know everyone would agree with this, is that when you listen to a song, you feel the music. You don't just it makes you want to dance, it makes you want to relax, or you start noticing that your head's bobbing or your shoulders are swaying, your hips are moving because you feel it. It's something that not only you feel, but like your soul feels, that your spirit feels. And so I believe that music has more of an influence on people than anyone really knows or thinks. So when people are feeding their minds with this music, it's like, oh, I like it for the beat. However, your mind is so advanced that it's listening to the lyrics. You're listening to the lyrics, and you're envisioning what the lyrics are telling you. Like if there's a song talking about, well, I'm up in this club with these girls that are completely gorgeous, what are you going to envision? These girls, like one of my favorite movies is Inception, right? And one scene from the movie says, if I tell you not to think about elephants, what are you going to think about? Elephants, right? And it's
Yep.
because you envisioned what I just told you. Um, that's how I feel music has an effect because of how advanced we are as creatures. Is that if you hear about that bottle of Hennessy, what are you going to picture in your mind, right? And if you've drank that before, you're going to be like, you know what, I could use a drink. And so it just becomes a like I said, a dependency, a reaction. Like, you know what, this is relatable. I'm going to continue through with it.
So, the last question I have, it's more from a religious basis, and I know Kay, you're not super religious, but it's a concept that I grew up in a Christian church, and so like my freshman year, I think, one of my pastors talked about this concept of you can't be fully loved until you're fully known. And essentially it was that as humans, whenever we're in the shits, when we're down and out, we don't like to expose all of our bad parts, all of the negativity. We like to give certain people certain information. So like if your dad asks you what's wrong, oh, don't worry about it, I'm just tired. Or if
Right.
your best friend asks you what's wrong, oh, don't worry about it, I just had a long day. Stuff like that. And then, they don't know what you're going through, so they don't know how to properly love you and care for you. What what is your thought process on that thought
Oh
process?
no, yeah, I completely agree with that. I also believe that. Well, I'll talk about this first, and then I'll follow through with the second thing. But I completely agree because we come our mental state when we're down and out, we don't want to be burdens. That's everybody's state. It's like, oh, I don't want to talk about this because I feel like I'm gonna bring the people around me down. But you're actually causing more harm than good because nobody knows what you're going through. And when you start acting out, when you start being depressed but not talking about it, people don't know how to be themselves around you. And so when people don't fully know what's going on with you, like they won't know how to react. So like if I'm thinking, man, I really wish somebody would reach out today. Well, everybody has their own lives. They're not going to know that you need somebody to reach out. So without letting them know, and if nobody reaches out after that, you're going to be like, wow, I guess they don't care. But wait a minute, they don't know what you're going through. So saying something will actually help. And from personal experience, and this is actually going to get very personal. I hope that's okay.
100% fine. Go for it.
Last year, or no, it was, yeah, it was early last year. I was in a very, very bad mental state. In early January of 2020, I was in a dark mindset where I remember on New Year's, I was in my closet crying, and then not 2 hours later, I was at the movies with my friends, and I kept all of it quiet. However, I reached such a dark point that I was like, I really need to talk to somebody, or else I'm not going to be here anymore because I don't want to go through what I'm feeling. But nobody knew what I was going through. Everybody saw this happy ninja pizza, like, oh hey, she's always positive, and nobody's there, and nobody knew to be there for me. But it wasn't until I'm like, I don't know who to message. I was in this chaotic state of mind where I'm like, if I don't have somebody to talk to right now, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. And that's how severe it got for me. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tweet something because I don't know who to talk to. And it may be viewed as like a sense of attention, right? Like, oh, she's seeking attention. But no, my tweet was very cryptic, and it was just saying, what do you do? Like, what do you do when you don't want to be here anymore? Because I was seeking help. I was like, what do you do when you don't want to be here anymore? And one of the people who reached out to me is known on Twitter, on Twitch even, as the Llama Keeper, who is a very good friend of mine. And he reached out to me and he helped me that night. And I have him to thank for still being on this planet, because I was on a needle of actually just not being here. And again, I don't have a bad life. I have a supportive family. I have a wonderful family. I have amazing friends, amazing people in my community. But it was my own battles that I was facing alone without reaching out that I was overwhelming and becoming a burden, that I almost lost the battle to myself, to my inner demons. And when I finally reached out, like, hey, how do you feel better? Because I don't feel good right now. That's when somebody was there for me when I needed them. So I feel that it is important to be known so that people know how to love you. And to be loved, I believe people really need to know what other people um, see love as, because some people are like, well, when I get gifts, I feel loved. Whereas other people are more of like, oh, I don't like gifts, but I like hugs. So if I'm hugged, I know I'm loved. So knowing what people view as love also helps with the recovery process. If you want to be part of that recovery process. Another way of to be known is to be loved. What I view that as is when you fully know yourself, that is when you are able to be loved. Yeah, when you fully understand like yourself, and you see like your own, kind of like your own stats in a video game, when you start seeing like, okay, well, this is my weak points, these are my strong points, now I know what to look out for, and then you share that with other people because you're starting to understand yourself better, I believe that that will help other people help you as well. So there's like a base, a foundation of recovery.
Yeah, I don't have any more specific questions. If you have any questions for us, we will gladly take them. And I think at this time we're gonna start taking questions from the stream. For those of you who are watching through YouTube, I'm sorry, but we're probably going to end up cutting this out. This will be a Twitch exclusive portion. But you are always free to contact myself on Discord. I don't want to speak for Kaydexx or Ninja, but I'm sure that they would be happy to help however they can. Is there anything that you would like to shout out real quick, Ninja? Like an Instagram, Twitter?
Pretty much, yeah, sure, thank you. I am just the Ninja of Pizza on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram. I don't post much to Instagram anymore, but yeah, I'm just an average girl streamer. That's about it. I like to shout out, the wonderful Kaydexx, who I exclusively call K-Bay because she is the Bay, and a Shotgun Turtle for allowing me to be here. I thank you for that, and thank you guys so much for making this about mental health because it is something that I'm passionate about, and it means a lot that there are other good people in the world using this platform for, a positive side and not negativity and toxicity. So I appreciate you guys.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I can be kind of a negative turd, but only when it's needed. Um,
Same. That's usually every other Thursday,
Alrighty, well, thanks again for joining us on the stream. Much love,
Yeah.
stay safe, don't do addictive substances, please. Stay away from it, especially during this whole COVID shit. I know a ton of people who have become like addicted to alcohol and stuff, and it's just not good. Stay away from it. We will catch y'all in the next podcast.